Welcome back to the channel, builders and DIYers of YouTube. This video is going to be a little bit different than our usual because we don't have a major construction update ready to post yet. We have lots in the backlog, none are quite ready. So I'm out here for a stroll on this beautiful spring evening with George. We're just walking through the woods and thinking about something that I've thought a lot about throughout our DIY construction journey. And it's a four-letter word that goes hand in hand with pretty much everything, but construction especially, and that is time. More specifically, deadlines in construction and how they make people feel and how it increases stress. It's just something that I wanted to open a conversation up about and get everyone else's thoughts on this because it's something I never really thought about before we started this project. But I feel like the idea of deadlines and time pressure causes so much stress to humans, and on the whole, I feel it negatively influences construction, well, at least the quality of construction. Building stuff is already, I feel, one of the most physically and mentally demanding jobs out there. Things can go wrong so quickly. There's so many moving parts and pieces, and even something like a lapse in sequencing or just the order that you're doing jobs in can cause such a major headache, cost a lot of money, and force a lot of unnecessary rework to happen. Some of my buddies that work in commercial construction, building things like hospitals and data centers and lab facilities, they have clauses in their contracts called liquidated damages, which I have never even heard of, which basically is a daily dollar amount that the construction company must pay the client if they go over schedule, literally day by day costs. Now, I think sometimes they have a cap on this, but the figure that I heard, if it was for a lab facility, was $10,000 a day that the construction company owes the lab if they do not have that facility done by this day. So that's causing overtime and Saturday work and all kinds of crazy effort to get this done in this schedule. And personally, I think it's probably causing some corners to be cut too in the quality of the workmanship. And sure, there's inspections, but inspections are the bare minimum. That does not mean it's the best it could possibly be. A comment that we get a lot about our personal project is, when's it going to be done? How long is this going to take? When are you going to be moved in? And I will say we're a lot further ahead in real life than we are on YouTube. It takes a lot of time and energy to edit these videos, so we're backlogged majorly on YouTube. A much more current representation of where we're at is on Instagram if you're curious. But the answer to all these comments and questions really is we just go at our own pace because it's so much less stressful. It makes the project way more enjoyable when we don't have to be busting our butt from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. 7 days a week getting it done. Now, that is a double-edged sword because there's a concept called Parkinson's Law, which is a task expands or contracts to fill the time allotted. And of course, if you give yourself more time, you're just naturally going to take more time. So there's definitely a downside to having all the time in the world to do what you want to do, but we realize that we're in definitely a privileged situation to be able to basically have turned building our own house into our job. And so that adds an extra element too, in that we're not trying to rush through it as quickly as possible. We don't have a client on the other end of the phone that's trying to move in with their 6 kids into the house they spent their whole life savings on. You know, we're in definitely a different situation, and there are truly projects where schedule is definitely a huge consideration and cannot be messed around with. But I just want to theorize, in a perfect world where everyone had as much time as possible to build the best things they could, what would that look like? Would we be building out of different materials that might take a little bit longer? Would we be employing different techniques? Or would craftsmanship on the whole be better? That's what I'd want to explore. I feel like tract home builders, for example, are basically trying to get to the very bottom dollar they can, make these things fly up as fast as possible. It's something that US home builders catch so much flack from European home builders for because Europeans just frankly don't do that, I feel like. Even their wood framed houses, I feel like, get a lot more attention to detail and airtightness and insulation than, say, a house in a tract development in Texas or Arizona. Someone reached out to us on social media years ago, actually, talking about their experience getting their house built in Germany. And it was not fast. This was a home in a development being built by a professional builder that did these, all the time. And I want to say it took 14 months just to get the foundation in and the frame up. I think it was a poured concrete wall foundation, and it might have been CMU exterior walls with a wooden truss roof. It took 14 months to get that done. I think they were just getting into mechanical rough-ins when they were messaging us, and they couldn't believe how long it took. But apparently that's totally standard over there. It's totally normal. Whereas in the US, if it's longer than a 7-month construction timeline for a track-built home, that's considered crazy. And even when you get into custom homes, 12, 14 months, you know, that's about normal. If it's taking 2-3 years on a custom home, unless it's a 10,000 plus square foot mansion, there's just seems to be no excuse for that in the United States. Like that's craziness. And then you see some of these folks on social media, like Sci-Fi Home Inspections is one that I'm sure if you watch any building stuff on YouTube, have probably seen his shorts inspecting some of these tract developments in Arizona and Texas where the quality control is like majorly lacking. There is very little craftsmanship, very little attention to detail. Gold Star Home Inspections. He's the guy that's like, that ain't right. Same kind of deal with those homes. And my personal favorite is probably Tools by Design on Instagram. If you've never seen any of his shorts, definitely check them out. He does a F It Friday where he basically compiles all of the worst of construction clips he can find and just makes a hilarious little compilation of those. Granted, I think a lot of his have a lot more to do with drugs than it does meeting a deadline, but I digress. I wonder what impact deadlines have on some of this construction quality issues that we see in America, that the Europeans love to give Americans so much flack for, between building with wood or just building things really quickly and slapping it up as quick as possible. How much of that would be mitigated if deadlines weren't a thing? If the track builder was like, all right guys, framers, we're not paying you by the job, we're paying you by the hour, and take as long as you need to get this done. Don't cut any corners, make sure all your joints are tight, make sure all your cuts are square, plumb walls, level floors, and would it make a difference if there was no time constraint on that? One caveat I'll make to that though, is there are some teams out there that work so incredibly well together that they can do an incredibly quality job in a crazy small amount of time and get on to the next job without sacrificing quality. The best example I've seen of this in our own personal build was our block wall masons. That was a crew of like 6-7 guys. They got in there, they knew exactly what to do. Everyone had their job and they were just so freaking good at their jobs. Obviously just so much practice. They were a commercial crew. They're used to doing massive buildings and they do get measured by their foremans on how many blocks a day they can lay. So our 645 block job was literally nothing. They were done by like 11:30 in the morning and started at 7. But when I checked squareness and level on that foundation, it was just spot on. Like, unfreaking believable how good these guys were at what they did and how quickly they did it. So I'm not saying that it can't be done, but I feel like it's more the exception than the rule. And here's another example from our project that's the reverse of this situation. And I don't want to speak poorly about my friend at all. He was really our friend first, and he's also a contractor. So we hired him to help with our James Hardie siding. And we didn't show this in the video, so this is a little bit of bonus clip, but he was kind of squeezing us in between jobs and he was willing to leave his pump jack scaffold set up here. So I told him, yeah, let's just get as far as we can get, move on your job. If you don't mind leaving the pump jacks here, Elaine and I will finish it out. I think it was the third day that he and his helper were working. They really wanted to crank through this back wall. It was the wall with the deck ledger on it. And their goal was to get it done by the end of the day because the next day is when they had to start their new project. Well, about 3/4 of the way up the wall, he was measuring down from the soffit and could tell something was just not quite right. So they kind of just stopped there. They quit around 2:30. And then I got up there and realized that the two courses on either side of the deck ledger had sort of diverged. I think they were gaining like a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch per course on the left side. And they were just rolling through it, trying to get to the top until they realized that the two courses were off by like an inch over like 10 courses. So I actually had to take down quite a few courses of siding, get back down to the deck ledger and make sure that they stayed the same using the laser level all the way back up. That example taught me the whole like trust but verify thing. Going fast is great as long as you can maintain quality, but if you can't maintain quality, just go slow and get it right, because you'd rather do it once right than do it twice, even if doing it right took a little bit of extra time. This is such a sticky subject though, and I just don't have the answer for it. Like, I can't change time, I can't change how people work or whether they're getting paid hourly or per the job and how that influences how they work. Like, I don't have a solution for this. It's just something that I've thought about because I don't think there is really much of a solution. It's something that I feel like gets developed over time and how well you know a contractor or a subcontractor if they're working for you. So you can figure out the quality and what to expect. You can figure out the time it's gonna take you. and how much it's going to cost you. Those are three variables that can just swing all over the place depending on where you're at and who you know. But the fact of the matter is, time is always going to be in the equation in construction, and it's going to be something that we're always going to be dealing with. If you're watching this and you're a contractor or you're an owner builder that needs to hire contractors, I would love to hear from you in the comments on your thoughts on like the concept of paying by the hour or paying by the job, whether you think that encourages cutting corners to get jobs done more quickly, or whether paying by the hour just unnecessarily drags out projects because that increases the pay. This is really just an open conversation that I just wanted to leave out there and sort of just brain dump my thoughts on this whole thing. So I appreciate you listening if you made it this far. I know George has thoroughly appreciated this long walk, and as always, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.